Hello, my name is Michael Delaney, and today I wanted to go ahead and discuss COVID-19, uh, its effects during and after it was considered a pandemic. So here we have a little timeline of COVID-19. When did it start and what really was it? So in late 2019, there were rumors of a new strain of a virus, a respiratory virus, that were circling around certain Chinese areas, such as Wuhan, China, potentially originating from a fish market, a raw market as they call it over there, where there's a lot of very unique foods that are on sale that are not really known to Western diets. But then in early 2020, the WHO, or the World Health Organization, began to refer to this new virus as the 2019 novel coronavirus. And considering I had lived through that, and everyone who's listening to this has also lived through it, I remember when it was starting to make its rounds and starting to be known as that. But in February of 2020, that's when the WHO officially labeled the virus as COVID-19. And I think this is when people really started to recognize that this could become something relatively serious as far as its potential effects on a global scale, enough to where on March 13th of 2020, the Trump administration declared a national emergency regarding the virus. And this actually resulted in a travel ban from to and from many European nations, Asian nations, as well as Middle Eastern nations. And then in May of 2020, that's when the entire world was pretty well acquainted with COVID-19. There were no countries that had not had a single case. It was a global thing, but nations did choose to deal with the virus in a variety of different ways. So what were COVID's effects on daily life? Well, in the short term, COVID was declared a pandemic on March 11, 2020, which caused the entire world to slow down in numerous ways. And by the end of the same month, most nations had completely shut down social events of any kind or assembly in general, apart from emergency services, which was already a subjective matter within the world of what is considered an emergency service, what isn't. Social distancing, which was a new concept introduced by the WHO, was designed to prevent people from being within a specified distance, I believe it was 6 feet, to slow down the spread of the virus. But in the long term, there was a greater awareness of mental health in general. People were aware of the downsides and upsides of it. There's rising unemployment even to this day, and labor markets are changing kind of due to unemployment, due to AI. People are trying to move away from the office, move more into remote spaces, and due to the more increased reliance on digitalization to do work, it's really easy to transition AI into a lot of those lower level white collar roles, such as data entry or call center agents. And then there's also an increasing unstable trust in the government, just in general. So realistically, the changing ethics of COVID, and there were many, COVID-19 led to numerous ethical considerations to be made about modern life, and I had summarized these in a few different questions. How necessary is social life? What are the ramifications of forced isolation? How much power do government agencies truly have, and how to differentiate between real and fake news? All of these things are questions that I think critical thinking people in Western society and all over the world are thinking in various degrees, both subconsciously and consciously. The necessity of social life, I think that the effects of COVID and the isolation and solitude that it's caused many demonstrate that, we're social creatures. We're definitely supposed to be around other humans. What are the ramifications of social or forced isolation? Again, similar thing. The effects are still coming out. Studies have shown that depression and anxiety are increasing at alarming rates, and there is no end in sight. And I think a lot of people attribute that to COVID. How much power do government agencies truly have? Again, especially in more right-wing circles, a lot of people are starting to question how much control do government agencies or governments as a whole just really have, and the ability to just completely shut down daily life for many and impede on certain rights given by the Constitution is a difficult thing to discuss, and how to differentiate between real and fake news. Sensationalized media is running rampant, and all these questions are very difficult to answer, but are much more on the forefront of informed people. So changing politics within the Western world are at a near historical high with regard to its divisiveness. Tensions between and within political parties continue to increase with no end in sight. This is due to numerous things. Again, I've summarized it in sensationalized media, as we've already discussed, false narratives or fake news, intentional misinformation to cause further sensationalism, and subconscious mental isolation. All of these things, and that one essentially means people are intentionally putting themselves in an echo chamber. Unintentionally, excuse me. Some of them are doing it intentionally, but for the most part, people are just through algorithms on social media. They're seeing the content that makes them happy instead of the content they need to see to form a very informed decision or opinion on something. Future of the law, due to increased mistrust in governments and in judicial systems, academic institutions such as the University of Chicago have tenured staff claiming that the consequences of the virus will be extensive, unpredictable, and extraordinarily powerful. What this entails is a potentially more selective group of people who are put in jail, as overcrowding within the American prison system has made social distancing near impossible. So in one of the sources that I've listed in this PowerPoint, there was a study done by the University of Chicago that was discussing that prisons, due to them being very overcrowded prior and during the pandemic, there were issues, and it was essentially impossible to have accurate and correct social distancing. So the virus was spreading pretty rampant through prisons, and this kind of made people think like, should we be more selective on who actually goes to jail? Should we use more fines instead of actual incarceration? There's also active discourse regarding whether the lockdowns impeded on the First Amendment and the right to assembly, and it also started to kind of bring a question to the efficiency that certain laws and regulations are passed. You have the CTAP, which was the Coronavirus Testing Acceleration Program, and the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, who were kind of fighting against each other to get certain drugs approved to slow the spread of the virus. So that was another thing that, you know, it was uncharted territory with regard to having an expedited process to pass certain medications laws, whatever it might be, in order to benefit the people. Lasting impact. Many people look back upon this period with great pain, while others viewed it as a necessary and fortunate time to almost reset. Even within my own life, again, I'm 21, so I haven't seen too much of the world, but from what I have seen, anecdotally speaking and statistically, it's a split room with regard to how many people viewed COVID personally as a positive or negative experience for them. I think for certain people, it was a brutal time of, again, that forced solitude, especially for those extroverts out there. And for others who just are more homebodies, they really used it to just recharge, get a break from their job, take up new hobbies, what it might be, and they viewed it in a positive light. But I think it can be agreed upon that everyone was impacted by the virus in some way, whether it be the isolation or the forced introspection, or even the concept of government oversight being a little too invasive. People were thinking more deeply than prior. Then there's a specific topic that I wanted to discuss, the effects on academia before college. So remote learning, mental health, and delayed academics. In an article written by WBUR.org, teachers from Chelsea High School in South Fulton, Georgia, were asked numerous questions regarding the effects of the pandemic that they had seen in the graduating class of 2024. So in this article, they had many interviews done with teachers and students regarding different topics, such as like what did remote learning do to students, and like did they see a decline in the work quality? And yes, they did see a decline in the work quality. They said that they were falling behind at an alarming rate due to disengagement. Students just were not able to pay enough attention to really anything in order to focus enough to really absorb the material. And mental health was discussed all the time during and after the pandemic, and many students have been officially diagnosed with depression disorders. And a lot of leading psychologists, doctors, mental health experts are actually attributing the large rise to the overindulgence of social media during the time, because people were home, they didn't have much better to do, as well as the fact that people are not meant to be isolated in that way. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching. That has been my final project for CIS 321. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.